welcome back to another Couch Potato General Manager video, guys. And we have a very interesting concept for this video. We're actually going to do somewhat of an inception to our own two-round mock draft from a couple weeks back. Of course, free agency is underway. The legal tampering period has elapsed. We are into a new league year now. And of course, there are moves, transactions flying left and right, a lot of moving pieces, but a lot of blockbusters going on. And of course, the mock draft that we're ultimately reacting to, our own mock draft, things are going to change. Things are going to change. We anticipated that. We just want to see exactly how much they're actually changing, right? Without further ado, let's get into it, Drew. All right, we are back with another Couch Potato General Manager mock draft. Joining me is CPGM Drew. I am CPGM Juice. We do what we call a mock draft duel, where Drew and I go head-to-head for the 2022 NFL Draft, our mock drafts. Last time around, I believe I selected the AFC, or I was picking for the AFC teams. You were picking for the NFC teams. We're going to run that back. We're going to run that back this time, but we're going to go 2 rounds deep, 64 picks. And Drew, I'm going to get it started. I last time around, I went with Evan Neal, safe, has all the measurables, obviously a distinguished college career at Alabama. But I'm going to mix it up this time. I'm sticking with the offensive line, but I'm going with your boy Icky. Obviously, in the 2-round mock draft, I went with Ikem Ekwonu. As I mentioned, if you want to go Evan Neal, certainly understand that. However, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they franchise tag Cam Robinson. We were anticipating him being an unrestricted free agent. Of course, they bring in Brandon Scherf. They've made a lot of moves. I really like what they've done on the defensive side of the ball. But of course, they retained their incumbent at left tackle. And now it's a question as to whether or not they'll even bother going offensive line here. Yeah, there's still a question mark at right tackle. But Drew, what do you think? Do you think it's a foregone conclusion that they go edge rusher with the first overall pick now?
Well, word on the street is that they love Aiden Hutchinson. And with what they've done in free agency, they've kind of, I don't want to say solidified the offensive line, but they damn sure have made it better than what it was. And again, you want to protect your quarterback. So it's tough, man. It's tough. I'm leaning towards they're going to go pass rusher. My split is going to remain. I'm going to go 55-45 pass rusher over offensive tackle.
I'm in the same camp. I actually think it is more likely that they go edge rusher than that. I know you're saying, it's leaning towards edge rusher, but I think it's a done deal. It's just a matter of who it is. You mentioned Aiden Hutchinson. Trayvon Walker obviously has flown up the board here. Certainly looks the part, and I think a lot of people feel, a lot of evaluators feel like his best football is ahead of him. And then, of course, for the longest 2021 college football season, most folks thought Kayvon Thibodeau was the best player, but his star has diminished a little bit. I'd be perfectly comfortable taking him first overall as well. So, yeah, I'm anticipating the Jags to go edge here. All right, Drew. So with the second overall pick, so you went with Kayvon Thibodeau. I don't think the Lions have done anything in free agency to suggest that they won't take whomever they feel is a top edge rusher on the board at that juncture, right? So we're anticipating now that the Jaguars take an edge rusher first overall. I think the Lions follow suit. What about you?
Yeah, I don't think anything changes there. They need a guy off the edge that can affect the passer every play. And so, like you said, what they've done in free agency hasn't changed anything at all.
This far, they haven't made any huge splashes, but nice, shrewd moves. I think that's a good addition in DJ Chark. Of course, he's betting on himself on a 1-year deal, but there's an element that he brings to that offense that they simply didn't have. Perhaps the speed component and maybe a Khalif Raymond, but certainly not the catch radius that Chark presents. That puts me back on the clock with the Houston Texans, and like I said, the top with respect to Icky, I think what goes a long way in terms of being able to protect the quarterback is having a competent running game and an effective offensive line. And with Aiden Hutchinson on the board, that is tempting, but I want to get that tackle position situated, improve that offensive line that was the worst in the league as far as being able to run the football. They have no one on that offensive line under contract beyond 2022, if I'm not mistaken, outside of Laramie Tunsil. Once they move Watson, they're going to get a ton of picks. I imagine they probably get some young talent back along in that trade. Where do you go? We're thinking 2 edges now, considering what has transpired this far through free agency. 2 edges going with the first 2 picks. Do they make it 3 in a row here, or do they ultimately address the offensive line in your estimation?
It's whoever they have the highest on their board who falls to them at 3. Who's there at 3 for them? Right now for me, I probably still go offensive line. Well, it's a little bit different. A little bit different around here these days. Okay, man. Oh, that's you. My bad. I'm jumping in. My fault. Go ahead. Yeah.
That's all right though. That's all right though. I'm back on the clock. Back on the clock with the Jets, and we could go in a number of different directions here. You got a lot of quality football players on the board, but I cannot pass up the opportunity to pair Carl Lawson up with an upper echelon edge rusher in this class. So, you took Thibodeau 2 overall. I'm going to go with Aiden Hutchinson 4th overall. A lot of people have mocked Kyle Hamilton here 4th overall. I'm not coming off of an edge right here. One of those guys are going. Unless of course edge goes 1, 2, 3. I can't imagine the Jets passing on any of Trayvon Walker, Thibodeau, or Hutchinson.
Nah, you gotta pull the trigger if you're the Jets there. You didn't do anything in free agency up until this point. And
with respect to that, they've made some moves, but
no. To that particular position, they haven't. So I definitely think with one of their picks, with this first pick, I would assume it was going to be the pass rusher, especially if they're coming off the board as fast as they're coming off. So we got to get somebody opposite Carl Lawson. We know what it looks like when they're not getting a pass rush, right? So let's go ahead and do the right thing and get the pass rusher opposite Carl Lawson. Next up, we got the New York Giants, and man, there's a lot of good players on the board right now, and
it's all been meat and potatoes to this point.
Yeah, it really has. Potatoes. Trenches, and we're going to continue that trend.
All right.
With the Giants, and we're going to go ahead and select the riser of all risers coming out of the Senior Bowl, and Jermaine Johnson. Slip him right in there. Let me go ahead.
That's how you doing it.
Yeah. We got to pair him up.
That's how you doing it.
With your boy from Georgia from last year, Aziz. Yeah.
With the first of 2 first-round picks for the New York Giants, Drew, you ended up taking Jermaine Johnson. Now, again, this is before the Trayvon Walker star took off, right? But of course, Jermaine Johnson, his star had taken off. After a really impressive showing during Senior Bowl week in Mobile, didn't even finish the practices. He was so dominant and so explosive off the edge. Gave guys fits every day that he was actually out there on the practice field. But he certainly has made himself a lot of money. And considering that the New York Giants haven't necessarily addressed the pass rush to this juncture in free agency, they can certainly go edge here. I think Charles Cross is in play, considering what he can bring to the table in terms of his pass protection. And even Trevor Penning, there may be folks who disagree with that notion, but I think either side of the ball as it pertains to pass rush and protecting the pass, opening up run lanes, addressing the trenches is the focus here with the 5th overall pick.
It's funny. All these first 5-6 picks is kind of funny because it's like it's either offensive line or it's pass rush, for the exception maybe of Detroit, and they're going to have their pick. And if it's me, I'm gonna stick with the owner, and I'm gonna go offensive line.
Protect the quarterback. Yeah.
Penning, it's Penning or Cross.
Gotcha.
The right thing for the quarterback.
You followed up that Jermaine Johnson pick to the New York Giants with the 5th overall selection with Charles Cross going to Carolina. Now, Carolina was linked to Deshaun Watson last season, certainly throughout this offseason. And it appears that they are out of the running. It seems like this is a 2-man race at this juncture. Although no one has confirmed it, no one of a certain credibility has confirmed it, to my knowledge, as of the time that we're recording this video. But it does seem like they are no longer part of that situation. So, considering that Watson's off the table, do you go in a different direction? Do you go in a Garoppolo direction? Do you check in on Baker Mayfield, considering the fact that the Browns don't seem to be in love with him either. They certainly were flirting with the idea of bringing in Deshaun Watson as well. Or do you run it back with Sam Darnold, as you did in this particular mock draft, and you continue to improve that offensive line?
It's all about how you feel about Baker Mayfield. I think he would be the one quarterback that I would think about, or at least kick the tires on, call up Cleveland, because he's sour over there, and see what's going on. But then I would think also, man, am I doing what I did with Sam Darnold? You know what I mean? I definitely think Baker's a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. I think that's an easy decision. But it's like, are we kind of rinse and repeat what we did with Sam Darnold? Okay. If it's me, we just gotta run it with Sam Darnold, see what happens. I'm gonna go with an offensive lineman. Got to protect them. Got to be able to run the football. and we'll see what happens from there. Maybe we'll be in the mix for a quarterback early next year. I'm not. Let's. You try to put all your chips in the middle for Deshaun Watson, and he's like, nah, I'm good. And I think the coaching staff might be a big part of that. It's kind of unknown. You know what I mean? Everywhere else, there's a little bit more known, if you will, there. So, going offensive line in the draft still, and I'm gonna sit with Sam Darnold. Let's just leave it as is.
I can't do it, man.
Can't do it.
I mean, you already know. You already know that I've never been a fan of Sam Darnold, and I certainly understand that he hasn't always been in the most advantageous position. But I was never a fan to begin with. I don't know how you just roll Sam Darnold out there though if you're Matt Rule. I get it. I get it. You need to address your offensive line. I don't know. I don't know if they're in the market for Teron Armstead at this juncture. I don't know. There's some guys that can come in and make a difference along that offensive line. Of course, you can go Charles Cross here,
Right.
and shore up your tackle position. There's no issue with that. But I think you have to do something at quarterback because there's no tomorrow for Matt Rule otherwise. I just don't see it, man. I don't see it unless Sam Darnold plays out of his mind. I don't think a 500 season saves Matt Rule's job. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
I think they have to be in the mix for a wild card position at a minimum in order for him to keep his job. Considering that they basically there were two drafts where they just focus on the defense, which is Matt Rule's calling card, right? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But they're not shutting down the opposition. They got the talent on the defensive side of the ball, but they're not a dominant group. So at this juncture, you need someone to offset that offensively. We talk about it all the time on this channel. In what is now a 17-game regular season, you're going to have to outscore opponents from time to time. Yes, you get Christian McCaffrey back. You have a good host of receivers. You expect Terrace Marshall, Tommy Tremble to take a step forward as additional threats. But
Right.
I'm not convinced that the trigger man is the guy to get this done, that the quarterback is the guy to get this done. You understand what I'm saying? I would much rather roll the dice on a Baker Mayfield or even Jimmy Garoppolo at this juncture. I've just seen better football out of those guys compared to Sam Darnold. And if I'm Matt Rule, I'm not the fact that I have this season, after making that trade to acquire Sam Darnold, that to me is enough reason to say, hey, you know what? In all likelihood, especially after the whole Joe Brady situation falling apart, I probably shouldn't be
Yeah.
employed. I probably shouldn't be
Yeah.
employed. I need to
That's on him.
give my best. I got to put my best foot forward, and that does not come in the form of Sam Darnold, if you ask me. All right, Drew. So you followed up Charles Cross with Trevor Penning. Penning would be on the board, despite what's happened in terms of free agency. I believe they brought in Feliciano, a guard. They still have a question mark at tackle opposite Andrew Thomas. And considering, let's just assume Evan Neal, Cross, and Icky are off the board. There could be an instance where Cross is actually available here. All things, depending on the way things flesh out. But if those three guys, if Cross, Neal, and Icky are gone, you still at this juncture, you're still comfortable selecting Penning 7th overall to the New York Giants?
Yes, sir. I've seen enough in the Senior Bowl, and I'm not coming off of it. I mean, there's scenarios where I would go Penning over Cross in certain situations. So depending on what the offensive scheme and all that is, but yeah, man, I'm comfortable. Let's go, man.
Say it with your chest, bro. Say it with your chest.
Trevor Penning, man, beast.
This particular draft, top 15, top 20 prospect.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to reach a little bit, and I'm not suggesting that he is a reach, but if I'm going to reach a little bit, it's typically going to be along the offensive line, right? I will exercise patience with some other positions, most position groups, but offensive line, if I think there is a particular drop off after a guy, I might go a little earlier to ensure that I get him. So I certainly understand it. The thing about Cross v. Penning, though, I think Cross is clearly more advanced as a pass protector. In fact, he's arguably the best in the class, and we're trying to protect Daniel Jones, right? That's what John Mara talked about. We haven't really given this guy a chance. So if I'm faced with those two guys, I'm probably going Cross. But if my consolation prize is Trevor Penning, I can live with that most certainly.
Easy, man. I'm just gonna pick the best player at this point, bro.
All right, fair enough.
I was thinking about Burks, but I'm like, nah. Let's just go with the best player available, and let's go with Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame, and in some people's minds, he might even be the best player in the draft, and I understand it.
Drew followed up the Trevor Penning to New York Giants with the 7th overall pick, with Kyle Hamilton to the Atlanta Falcons with the 8th overall pick. So already established this team just needs talent, right? This team needs talent.
Yep.
if they land Watson, free agents will come. There's no question about it. There's guys who are waiting right now to sign uh, and trying to judge whether or not Watson will be in either New Orleans or Atlanta. All right, so we're going to skip right ahead to the Denver Broncos with the 9th overall pick. And during our 2-round mock draft, I had them selecting Ahmad Gardner. This was prior to, of course, the acquisition of Russell Wilson. So now it is the Seattle Seahawks sitting in the 9 hole, and we're anticipating quarterback. And the quarterback that I think has been linked most and certainly has the skill set in terms of pushing the football down the field to the likes of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, that seems to be the way they want to run their offense. I think they need to be a little bit more measured, string some first downs together as opposed to, swinging for the fences, every other play. But Malik Willis does have the skill set. He does have the rocket of an arm. He can extend plays. The question is whether or not he's ready to go immediately. But in this particular scenario, you think Drew Lock keeps him at bay for a few weeks, a month or so? I'm not certain of that, especially in Seattle. If he demonstrates and he shows well during the preseason, a la Russell Wilson, when Russell Wilson broke onto the scene, I can see Malik Willis being the pick here and playing week 1 come the 2022 regular season. What about you?
Bro, I have no idea what the hell Seattle's going to do, bro. They're not a team that, in my opinion, they haven't drafted well in a while.
Sure.
And now you've given them one of the top 10 picks, and now you're saying, hey, go out there and do what you haven't done in years. What does that look like? You know what I mean? Are they going to draft best player available? Are they going to draft quarterback need? What are they going to do? Are they going to trade out of there to scoop up more picks? They wouldn't surprise me to go left when their pick comes up. It makes sense to go quarterback. I would probably go quarterback, but again, I don't know what Seattle's going to do with that pick, and that's a team that's kind of the wild card in my opinion.
The only thing that I think is reasonable, aside from a slide of Kayvon Thibodeau or something like that, I think the only thing that is reasonable is outside of drafting a quarterback is to trade down. You know what I mean? They have a lot of holes that they they made some decent moves. They outside of the Russell Wilson trade, obviously they made some decent moves. They've added Noah Fant, Chenna Nwosu, I think is a underrated pass rusher. I think there's a familiarity, obviously, him playing his college ball at USC. What the book tells you to go, quarterback, obviously. But if they do go in a different direction, I would expect them to trade down a few slots. You know what I'm saying? And still position themselves in order to get the quarterback that they desire. Considering that Washington went ahead and decided to hitch their wagon to Carson Wentz, I think that's in play. All right, so originally I selected Treylon Burks 10th overall. People are really, focused on the measurables. He did not test particularly well or as impressively as we anticipated, considering what we see on film. But that's where I'm going to focus. I'm going to place my focus. I'm going to place my faith in the film. Now, he is not the most polished receiver. I don't think there's any debate about that. I think, for my purposes, the guy that I like the most among the receivers, my receiver one, is Garrett Wilson. But Treylon Burks has a unique skill set. You get a little A.J. Brown out of him. You get a little Deebo Samuel out of him when he's a ball carrier. I think he's a weapon. And considering that this coaching staff comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree, that's the reason why I went Burks. And while I don't expect him to go top 10, after he just didn't test as well as I think some teams would have liked to see, I think he's going to end up being a steal. To this point, the Jets haven't done anything on the perimeter. They did bring in a pair of tight ends. However, there's a question mark at receiver, and you want to outfit this team with as much talent in terms of the supporting cast as you possibly can for Zach Wilson. So got Garrett Wilson here. If you want, kind of the quintessential red zone threat. Drake London is available. We could see a surprise here. We could see a surprise here with Chris Olave. I'm certain there's some teams that feel he's the top receiver in this class. So any number of different directions you can go in. You can go corner for certain. Because they just haven't necessarily addressed that to this point.
Yeah, I think corner may be a big one because they can get the best corner at this point.
Yeah.
They can grab their guy that they want or trade down and then grab the next best guy that's on the board if guys aren't separated that well. I think at this point it's going to be a perimeter guy, whether it be a corner or be a receiver. I'm going to go back to what they did last year, which was they were one of the teams rumored, allegedly trying to get Justin Fields. If we're not Justin Fields, somebody. They was trying to get somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they know that Heineke has limitations.
Sure.
There's no doubt about it. I'm not sure what's going on with Fitzpatrick, but he's always an injury away from just kind of being over. So let's go ahead and get the future, man. And I'm gonna go down. Let's go get us the man, the legend from Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett.
Legend. I'm a Kenny Pickett fan. I wouldn't go legend just yet. I am a Kenny Pickett fan, though. With this selection, you went quarterback. You ended up selecting Kenny Pickett. You made him the first quarterback off the board. I certainly don't have an issue with that. I think Kenny Pickett would have been a good fit. I don't particularly care for what Washington has done in terms of letting some interior offensive linemen go. I know they've replaced one of the two positions that they ultimately let walk. With respect to that, but Carson Wentz, man, Carson Wentz is the guy. They traded a pair of third-round picks. Apparently, his let's call it what it is, a failure at the end of last year, prohibiting the Colts for being in the tournament, for garnering a playoff position. Didn't scare them off. And I guess my thing is I think this is a little desperation, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? Of course, they're not giving up as much draft capital as the Indianapolis Colts did. They're the ones really reeling from that particular decision, but they've decided to cut bait. And now here are the Commanders adding Carson Wentz. And you and I've talked about this before. What is your actual issue here? Is it Wentz? Is it the play of Wentz, or is there something else that bothers you about that deal?
It's three things, bro. One, it's that you gave capital away to get him. Two is it's not like he was playing on a bad team and he's a good guy and you're bringing him in. And you know what he is. Like we all know what he is. Like apparently the Commanders think he's something he's not. Okay. 3, money. That contract is terrible. Like, how do you absorb that? And then you give away, like it doesn't make sense. In those scenarios, the Colts are supposed to be the one getting swindled, right? Because you're taking on their contract. We'll give you a 5th-round pick and we'll take on his contract and you give us the player, right? No. When I saw the trade, bro, I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, I can't believe anybody was trading for that. Teams pray for other teams to take on contracts. You can't take that contract on knowing what he is. And at the end of the day, at the end of the season, they had one team to beat. It's the worst team in the league. And you think everybody, you could put your whole paycheck salary on that game, thinking, hey man, the Colts going to be in the playoffs. Fast forward 3 hours. Fast forward 2 hours and 15 minutes, the game was over against the Jaguars, the worst team. Like, it didn't make no sense. Out here making the worst mistakes. You've seen the worst of Carson Wentz, and this happens every so often. Can happen from play to play, game to game, or you could be the best guy out there. But I'm not willing to have that guy as my quarterback. I'm not doing it, bro. I can't do it. And I know what it was, because they probably could have traded for a Baker Mayfield, something like that, but they don't want to give up that 11th pick. I guarantee you that's it. We'll take on this crazy salary, but we don't want to give up that 11th pick. Well, you're going to pay for it this season.
I was going to let the track breathe. I think as I was listening, I feel like you covered everything that needed to be said, but I just want to bring emphasis to one thing in particular. They've had to part with a lot of good players.
Good luck.
They've had to part with a lot of good players as they're trying to maneuver this cap. He has not been the catalyst for the elevation of the guys around him.
Correct.
In quite some time, right? Yeah. And there's a lot of subtraction happening in Washington right now. A lot on either side of the ball. I don't know. I don't know that this is going to be pretty. I don't think this is going to be pretty, man. All right, so you went a little off the board here. You were tired of the Kirk Cousins act, the
Right.
500 ball act, and you decided to select Malik Willis out of Liberty, new head coach, new GM, but instead, what happened in reality is that this new head coach and GM decided to guarantee Kirk Cousins some more money, man. And Kirk Cousins must have a brilliant agent to continue to be able to, I shouldn't say extort, man. That's not right. That probably is a banned word on YouTube. But to continue to garner these fully guaranteed contracts for average play. Now, don't get me wrong. Kirk Cousins will have a month, 6 weeks where he is white hot, and then he will face plant for a 3 or 4 game stretch. So it just, I don't know what the Vikings are trying to accomplish here, man. It's I understand not just doing something different for the sake of doing something different, but not unlike Carson Wentz, we know what Kirk Cousins is. We know what he is. You know what I'm saying? And this roster isn't outfitted on both sides of the ball to the point where we think it is a team that can make a deep playoff run.
You go from trying to trade for Justin Fields in the draft to then turn around, watch the season that you just watched. It's rinse and repeat with Kirk Cousins every season. And you then sign him to another year, guaranteed money, big boy money. And here's the kicker. Oh, it's Zimmer and Spielman. No. It's a new regime that's making that decision. So that tells me that's owner, not GM. It can't be, bro. You can't evaluate what you just saw in the past. Like, again, we know what Kirk Cousins is. Streaky guy, but at the end of the day, when you need him to be the guy, he's going to fail you. If things start to fall apart around you, offensive guy gets hurt over here, guy commits a penalty over here, he's not a guy that's going to raise the level of everything that's going on around him to circumvent something that happened or that they lost. He's not that guy. So why would you continue to – and this puts you in that purgatory state and you stay there. And to me, this is actually worse than just being bad, because with bad – comes actually some type of hope of, okay, we're gonna be picking at the top of the draft and we can go and get this guy. But purgatory kind of leaves you right in the middle where you just, you know what I mean? Like
500 ball is terrible, bro. It's terrible. 500 ball is only good when you're coming off a 3-13 season.
Yes, because you see an improvement. Yes.
But living year in, year out, around 7-9, between 7-9 and 9-7. Of course, a 17-game regular season now, but historically 16 games, right? 7-9, 9-7. It's just rough, man. It's rough. It's always what could have been. It's always what could have been, man. I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. But to your point, it may have come from a higher power. It may have very well been mandated by a higher power to give him. I thought they were simply going to let him play it out. Figure out who your bridge guy is, or not bridge guy. If you like the guy in this particular class, you had every opportunity to go get him. And then in 2023, it's his team, right? Or let him play it out and make it a point to go get one of those really talented quarterbacks that are going to be coming out next year. You understand what I'm saying? Don't extend him. That it just didn't make any sense to me. But at any rate, we move on. So no lead up on this one is needed either. With Garrett Wilson being the selection the first time around, of course. The Browns swindled the Dallas Cowboys and they acquired Amari Cooper. So certainly that is a bold step. But of course, Cleveland dabbled. They dabbled in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes, and Baker Mayfield did not take kindly to it. Baker Mayfield doesn't take kindly to most things. So that relationship seems irreparable at this juncture. I can't imagine Mayfield playing for the Browns in 2022. The Browns have already, postured and said, hey, we're not going to bend. You know what I'm saying? But there clearly is a discontent associated with Mayfield, not just in terms of his play on his field, but also the temperament associated with him. So I anticipate Mayfield will be on the moves.
I don't understand these teams when they do this. They go and they court another quarterback. As far as I know, bro, they didn't talk to Baker. Like, hey, man, listen, we can go over and do this. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think it would have mattered. Honestly, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
You know what I
mean? A professional.
Like grown men.
Yeah, I get it.
You know what I'm saying? Come on. They let Matt Ryan know. You know what I'm saying?
No, I understand that, but I think I think Ice is going to handle that with a certain level of class. Regardless.
Listen,
I'm not trying to excuse the team. It's just Ryan has always carried himself in a different way. The reality is Baker hasn't played well recently. That's what it is. He's been the weakest link. When it comes,
he was injured though.
I understand that. I understand that, man. But the Browns brass clearly, with respect to his contract situation, of course, the courting of Deshaun Watson, the Browns, their brass clearly doesn't think he's the long-term answer. Right. It's fairly obvious at this juncture. They thought, just like everybody else, this team on paper was ready to roll. And of
Right.
course, after winning a playoff game the year before, handling the Steelers, they thought, hey, listen, we do have our guy. And then of course, and here's the reality of it. Here's the actual reality of it. We talk about Baker being hurt, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to discount that, but the organization is going to have the best understanding of what's going on with his body, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
me, if they were sold on Baker, right, and they basically discounted the fact that, hey, 2021 was a lost cause because our trigger man couldn't stay healthy. You know what I'm saying? He got banged up. We had an issue. There was some chemistry issues in terms of the receivers or whatever the case may be. But hindsight being 2020, Odell Beckham ends up in Los Angeles, helps that team win a Super Bowl. You understand what
Right.
I'm saying? And the way the Browns have approached this situation to this point, what the tea leaves suggest, what the reports are coming out of Cleveland, that whole injury situation, it was either overblown or they just simply do not care. They simply do not care. They do not think he's the guy.
What if it's a situation where they like Baker, they like him a lot actually, but the thought process is, man, we can get Deshaun. We just got Amari Cooper. We can go get Deshaun, man. And I can't imagine Baker feels like he's better. He's a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson. Like, stop. Maybe he does because that he's a gamer and all that stuff. But come on, man. Like, what are we talking about, bro? You know what I mean? We sitting down having a drink. It's just me and him. Come on, bro. You're not gonna tell me you think you better than Deshaun Watson. You're not, bro. You just not. So, and the Browns feel the same way. I don't think they handled it appropriately. You know what I mean? I think it was handled poorly. It is what it is. But
It's certainly within the realm of possibility, but I'm my opinion on the matter on the outside, obviously way on the outside looking in, so I could be way
right,
off the mark, obviously, is that I think there's no love loss here. I think both sides are good off of each other. You know what I mean? That's what I think. Yeah, yeah, of course. You're able to acquire talent like Deshaun Watson. Certainly, you want to kick the tires on it, but they made no bones about it, man.
they
They
really
made
didn't.
no bones about it. And Baker's response, whether it was appropriate for the team to host Deshaun Watson without informing the incumbent, I'm not debating that. I think obviously, from a professionalism standpoint, you should let players know, but they're not obligated to do so. They're not.
Right.
And this contract has been a point of contention as well. So this was their opportunity. Like, listen, man, we ready to move off you, buddy. You know what I'm saying? You were probably part of that package to go back to Houston in all likelihood.
If I'm the coach, bro, I'm going to get Baker Mayfield, and we know what he can play like when he's got a chip on his shoulder because he's a walk on at this, that, and the other college, and every time he gets pushed to the brink, man, he comes out on top. So I'm just saying.
Mans was the first overall pick, man. Stop it.
I'm
Stop
just,
it.
all right, bro.
That
I'm just
that
telling
that
you.
chip that chip. I don't know what. I mean, obviously, he could derive some motivation from the fact that the Browns basically said, "Listen, man, we gonna take Deshaun Watson and all his all his alleged baggage." You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I mean, it's real baggage at this juncture. Once it's out in the space, then it is what it is. You know how that goes. So they didn't seem to care. There was that huge run on offensive tackles
Yeah.
at the beginning of our mock draft here. We had Ecom going 1, Neal going 3, Charles Cross and Penning going 6 and 7. So, with that being said, and as much as the Ravens need to improve upon their offensive line, the Ravens need to be proactive in free agency with respect to improving not only the offensive line, but also their secondary. Their secondary was hit with an inordinate amount of injuries. You have some contracts expiring. I'm not anticipating, a wholesale change defensively. Perhaps less was cover zero, but still quite a bit of man, considering that the new defensive coordinator was Harbaugh's defensive coordinator at Michigan. So I'm expecting a lot of man coverage here. I think the guy that you probably want in terms of man coverage, assuming everything checks out, we're hearing that he won't be performing at the combine. That concerns me. We will find out. I hope that more along the lines with respect to his medicals. That is Derek Stingley here, but considering everything is up in the air right now associated with Derek Stingley, I'm gonna opt for another corner. I'm not gonna force the issue here along the offensive line. Like I said, we can use free agency to kind of help stem the tide there. But I'm gonna opt for a guy that we really like. That I think you got to think about, turning defense into offense. And I don't think there's anybody quite like Andrew Booth in this class as it pertains to that. So I'm going to go with Andrew Booth here. I think he obviously played a lot of zone at Clemson, but he has the requisite traits and ability to play man. And like I said, the athleticism and the ball skills are off the chart. So I think Andrew Booth will fit in well. And he clicks and closes. He'll get downhill, and he supports in that run game as well. So I think Booth will make an excellent Raven. As you heard during the mock draft, I spoke to the Ravens leveraging free agency in order to address that eyesore along their offensive line, and I think they made a shrewd move in acquiring Morgan Moses. I thought, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a 3-year, $15 million deal. So we're talking about $5 million a year. I think that is a bargain. I know he's on the
Yes.
other side of 30, but competent play. He's gotten better over the course of his career, and they were a turnstile. With Ronnie Stanley being injured, Villanueva having his struggles, being cooked for the most part. They haven't been the
Mhm.
same since they lost Marshall Yanda. I think they may have the pieces internally to get the interior situated, but they really needed to get that tackle position. And they may not. They may need to double down and address or one of the interior offensive line positions as well, certainly. But I think Morgan Moses really puts them in a position to do what the Ravens do, right? Is to go best player available or to trade down. In this case, I liked Andrew Booth. I certainly understand if you want to go Derek Stingley here. Pass rusher is still available. Reportedly they had signs of Darius Smith bringing him back into the fold, but that apparently
Psych.
fell through. There's no Calais
Yeah.
Campbell. Justin Houston obviously is no longer there. So yeah. I think even with the likes of Marcus Williams signing at safety, we knew that secondary was ravaged. If you are higher on the corners, if on your overall board, I'm certainly okay with that. But you can go corner here. I think you can go edge here. Those are the two positions that I anticipate the Ravens to address here at 14.
Trayvon Walker still out there, available. Scoop him.
Well, well,
You
in
know.
this mock he was, but
Yeah. Nah.
he ain't in the green room no more. Nah, he gone, bro. He gone, bro. This man might go top 3, bro.
Everybody talking
It's. I don't think he
about.
gets out of the top 5. I don't think there's any chance he gets out of the top 5 now. The way the NFL views him. Like I
Right.
said, a lot of the people like us, prognosticators and couch potato general managers, right? They 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 were a little late to the party with respect to Walker, in the sense of not necessarily the talent, but in terms of how the NFL viewed him.
Yeah, the Ravens got a lot of work to do. They're probably gonna have to trade down, man. I didn't expect them to lose as many guys as they did, but man, tackle. I mean, I'm just gonna say it trenches both sides of the ball, and I love the Marcus Williams signing. Um, damn, bro, I don't know. Best player available. Let's trade down. Let me do the Newsome and trade
I
down.
mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything
Right.
wrong with it. I think because of the depth of the pass rushers in this class, a trade down is certainly viable. I think you trade down, anywhere from 3 to maybe 6 slots down. You're still going to get a corner that
Yep.
ultimately will be able to replace Marcus Peters. You know what I'm saying? You're losing Anthony Averett, so yeah. I think the Ravens can stay pat. I think they're fine there, but considering who they are, I can see a scenario where they trade down a few slots here.
I'm gonna do them a solid,
Doing
man.
solid.
Since Burks is off the board, we're gonna do the right thing. We're gonna come down here and go ahead and get your man Drake London, receiver.
Mm.
We're gonna do that for you, okay? All right,
You
everybody's
ain't
happy.
playing with it. You ain't
No,
playing with
no.
it.
Let's do the right thing, man. Guy who's gonna be where he's supposed to be, and a guy who can make plays after the catch. Because they got guys all over the field for the Eagles that can do that. It's just that, are they gonna be where they need to be, and are they gonna catch the damn football? I'm gonna be brave,
Be brave.
and I'm gonna go get Trent McDuffie, man.
Ooh. All right, Drew, with the back-to-back picks, 15th and 16th overall with the Philadelphia Eagles, you selected Drake London, and then you follow that up with Trent McDuffie. What the Eagles have done thus far is they've brought in Hassan Reddick. He's a local guy, played his ball at Temple. I think he certainly helps mitigate some of the losses that they're going to have along the defensive line. They most recently they released Fletcher Cox, Derek Barnett, Brandon Graham, unrestricted free agents. So a lot of change here in Philadelphia. They offset some of that up front on the defensive side of the ball with Hassan Reddick, and they brought in Ridgeway as an interior defensive lineman as well. You go London and McDuffie, though. And my question to you is, I don't think you're going to move off the London pick. I certainly wouldn't. I like the pairing of him with Devontae Smith. It gives you a different body type among those receivers. But Trent McDuffie, are you still holding firm, despite the fact that somewhat of a disappointing 40 out of McDuffie? He certainly doesn't have the size, the preferred size with respect to a lot of NFL teams. He may get regulated to the slot, although this team has actually played Avonte Maddox on the boundary, so that may not necessarily be a concern for Howie Roseman. But do you stick with McDuffie here at 16?
Yeah, I'm not coming off of it.
Okay.
Maybe go back to the tape a little bit and look, make sure I saw what I saw, but probably not. This is the best zone corner in the country, or in this draft, I should say. I'm not coming off of it. This team plays too much zone to go anywhere else, in my opinion, in terms of corner. I mean, I guess they could go anywhere, but I think if you do that, you're wasting those guys' talent, and you're not getting the best at what you do, which is play zone. So opposite Darius Slay, and the guy likes to tackle.
I think we can address proving upon that run defense a little bit later. You certainly could go pass rusher opposite Bosa. In terms of Jenna Nwosu, I believe he's an unrestricted free agent as well. Although I think they should bring him back. They might just need to tag him, to be honest with you. But I think at this point, I don't see Stingley getting past the top 20. I'm gonna bet on the talent at this juncture. You understand what I'm saying? I got two guys that I feel good about at the corner position. It's not an overwhelming need, but then again, you need to be 3-4 deep at least. To be able to play in this passing league, and it's going to be hard pressed to get a guy as talented as Stingley at this juncture moving forward. So I'm going to go with Stingley here, and I just love the depth at the edge position. I think the Chargers can do a number of different things in terms of solidifying that run defense. All right, so guys, you heard it. You heard my thought process with this selection of Derek Stingley to the Los Angeles Chargers, taking advantage of the depth at the edge position. So opting for a corner, you're losing Casey Hayward. He's actually in Atlanta now. You did select Asante Samuel, but now you put him in that nickel role, and I think you got something really going here with Michael Davis, Stingley, and of course the aforementioned Asante Samuel. But of course, it appears the Chargers wanted to address that prior to the draft, right? Giving them some more flexibility come draft night in the first round. They go out and they bring in J.C. Jackson, and I think of course there's big money associated with that, but I actually think they got him at a somewhat of a discounted rate, to be honest with you, considering how the market has been playing out. J.C. Jackson has been terrific. Formerly undrafted free agent, has become one of the top 4 corners in this league. Got to be top 4, top 5 at this juncture, maybe a little bit higher, just depending on who you ask. They bring him in. Of course, they bring in Khalil Mack. They make the trade for Khalil Mack. I was talking about edge rusher. They address that. Now you got Bosa and Mack to deal with. This could very well be the spot for Jordan Davis. I've been a big proponent of holding off on that. Of course, they bring in some guys, some veterans, in order to shore up that run defense in terms of the interior defensive line. So they don't have to force that issue either. There's any number of different things that the Chargers can do now with the 17th overall pick. They can go best player available. They can go in and make an effort to bolster their offense. There's so many things they can do. I think something that needs to be considered is Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean at this juncture. Even Quay Walker as he starts to climb boards as well. I'm not a fan of the second level off the ball linebacker play in Los Angeles. Unfortunately, Kenneth Murray has not lived up to the billing, and it may frustrate Chargers fans, but I think the moves that they've made thus far in terms of the trades, in terms of their free agent acquisitions, puts them in a position to be able to bring in an impact linebacker. I like Lloyd and Dean substantially more than Murray coming out.
This is a dream scenario for a GM and an owner when going into the draft. Is we know we're drafting. We kind of know the players that are probably, we're put in a position. We're not 100% sure who are the players that are going to fall to us, but we don't have to reach for anybody. We can sit back. If we need to trade down, we can trade down because we kind of solidified our issues in free agency, or we brought back guys on our team, i.e. Mike Williams, to kind of shore up positions that we thought maybe maybe we lose a guy, but we did. So Murray is not a guy that Staley drafted. That's not his guy.
No.
So it's a very, very likely that they could go linebacker. Like you said, that is an eyesore, I think, in that defense. And you bring in a Dean or Lloyd, man, listen. You got to shore everything up.
Murray not even getting snaps, bro. He not even getting snaps.
So what do we can we just, maybe you move him? Yeah, I think the linebacker position, I'm with you in terms of linebacker position, whether you go Dean or Lloyd. I think that might be the one where you're like, okay, we may, let's take the best linebacker, and the way we want to play this defense, that piece can be huge. It can be bigger than any linebacker you had with the Rams, playmakers at that level, because Murray ain't getting it done, and Murray isn't a guy that Staley drafted, and he ain't playing.
Yeah.
So, let's go ahead and shore that up so it's not a thing that we have to worry about.
Next up, Drew selected Matt Corral to the New Orleans Saints. And of course, this could be the way this ultimately plays out, Drew, assuming that they do not acquire Deshaun Watson in a trade. But let's assume that they do. Let's assume that they do. That would mean the Houston Texans are selecting 18th overall. Now, of course, the board looks very different compared to them having a second selection in the top 10 with the 9th overall pick, or not the 9th overall pick. Who would they be trading with? The 8th overall pick with the Atlanta Falcons. At 18, you're the Texans. What do?
We need talent there. We got. I'm looking at what they did in free agency. I'm not hating on it, but it is just a bunch of guys. You're trying to fill a roster. You got to have it. Is this where I can get me Devontae White? Or can I get him here, bro?
Yeah, you can certainly get him here. I think you can certainly get him here. If you like Jordan Davis in the 3-down capacity, you could go Jordan Davis. I might very well go back to the offensive line. Well, I'm going offensive line
right here.
3rd overall, in all likelihood. But of course they may have a different idea. They may end up going edge rusher. You certainly can go edge rusher here as well. You know what I'm saying? But I like Zion Johnson, Kenyon Green, Tyler Linderbaum. They need about 4 starting offensive linemen in Houston. You know what I'm saying? So I might just double down. I've said it before. I'll say it again. They were the worst team in the NFL in terms of running the football across the board. Didn't matter what category you're talking about. They were dead last. So yeah. If they're selecting 18th overall, I'd be hard pressed. Even if I select offensive line, one of the upper echelon offensive tackles with the 3rd overall pick, I might go right back to the well. Let's make this position a position group of strength. So, of course, in this 2-round mock draft, we have Trayvon Walker going 19th overall to the Philadelphia Eagles. We talked about them addressing the down line. They have a lot of guys who are exiting stage left, guys that have been a big part of this organization for an extended period of time. Again, we're not anticipating Trayvon Walker on the board here, but considering that they've already added Hassan Ridgeway, do you think with one of these 3 first-round selections, do they yet again address the defensive line? Do you still think they go in that particular direction?
It's possible if one of the guys falls into our lap. I think they would.
What guy would that be? What guy would that be?
At this point, to be honest with you, I don't think there would be a guy at this point. Maybe with one of the first 2 picks.
What about Ajabo? Do you think Ajabo might be available?
He might be available, but
here's the reason why. I'm going to let you make your point, but here's the reason why I think Ajabo may be available. Again, we can talk about the 1-year production, and we can talk about the fact that he's not ready for an every down role. You understand what I'm saying? I think because of his pass rush upside, he's going to end up being a 1st-round pick, but I don't expect him to go quite as high as I think some may have thought earlier in the draft process. I think with guys like Trayvon Walker climbing and the Trevor Pennings climbing, and you may see a quarterback or 2 get pushed up considering what's going on, and guys falling out of favor and out of love with their organizations because of the Deshaun Watson situation. I think Ajabo is one of those players, along with George Karlaftis, that we could see slide a little bit here. But the upside is tantalizing enough that they go in that particular direction. I think overall, with one of these 3 first-round picks, despite what they've already done in free agency, I think they have to address the defensive line. It's one of those position groups where you need a rotation. You need to be about 8 deep in order to be really, really successful. So yeah, it won't be Trayvon Walker, but certainly an edge player with the 19th, 15th, or 16th overall pick is in play for Philadelphia, in my opinion.
My question would be, no, you good. My question here would be offensive line.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? That would probably be my
Kelsey,
concern.
Brandon Brooks. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and that's my thing. That's my thing. You know, there's still some quality veterans out there, but I think personally, I think it's more likely that they go. Maybe not more likely. I personally would address the offensive line and defensive line with one of these 3 picks, right? So with that third first round pick, whether it be 15, 16, or 19, I'm probably going to get the receiver. I'm probably going to get the receiver or the corner, right? Maybe I'll go receiver round 2 or a little bit later, or perhaps delve into the free agent class with respect to that. But I want to get the trenches. I want to make those position groups of strength. And I can't rule out linebacker. I know that's not Howie Roseman's thing, but it's been such an eyesore for an extended period of time. And you're going to have a young defensive front here. You know what I'm saying? You don't have those old wily vets to keep, lesser players at the second level clean. I think you're going to need some better talent at the second level to be successful defensively. All right. Yeah, all kinds of curveballs in this 2-round mock draft here that we're doing. Guys, do us a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Even if you dislike it, like, comment, and subscribe. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers on the clock, and of course there's a glaring need at the quarterback position, although I'm fairly certain that this team is going to address this via a veteran. I wouldn't rule out them bringing in a guy themselves, a rookie, but and even in the 20 hole, even if they bring in a veteran, I wouldn't rule out completely them drafting quarterback here, or perhaps trading up. The word is that they are high on Malik Willis. I think they like Kenny Pickett as well, being kind of a local guy, having played his college ball in Pittsburgh. With that being said, and assuming that they go the veteran route, I think they have to. I think they absolutely have to improve their offensive line. This team has let that position group deteriorate over time. There's some quality defensive players on the board here, but let's talk about drafting best player available, right? But I just, when it comes to the offensive line, that to me goes out the window. When you have to improve the offensive line and you have quality guys that can come in, slot, and be difference makers out the gate, I think you have to go in that direction. And the guy that I really, really like here isn't necessarily who you think it is. I know there's a contingency of Pittsburgh fans that really like what Kenyon Green has to offer, would take him in a heartbeat here. But I'm going to go a little bit different. here. I'm going to go with my guy Zion Johnson, man. I was thoroughly impressed. He doesn't necessarily have the same pedigree as a Kenyon Green, but guys, I think you drop him in here and you got an 8 to 10 year starter easily. And then of course he could play a little center. He had never played center before playing center at Mobile, and he actually acquitted himself very, very well. So that work ethic, that flexibility, that ability to adapt quickly, take to coaching, I was thoroughly impressed by that, and I feel really good about Zion Johnson, 20th overall to the Steelers. All right, so let's talk a little bit about my selection of Zion Johnson to the Pittsburgh Steelers with the 20th overall pick in our 2-round mock draft a couple weeks ago, and juxtapose that against what's happened in free agency to this point. And of course, the Steelers understand. It appears that they understand that they had a need. I anticipated that they would address the quarterback position via a veteran free agent. They've done so with Mitchell Trubisky. Drew, you feel like that is a substantial upgrade to the what remained of Ben Roethlisberger last season. I am not a Trubisky fan, but certainly I can understand where you're coming from. It was particularly bad, especially behind that offensive line. So Zion Johnson is a pick for me here. I considering that they brought in James Daniels and Mason Cole, a couple of interior guys, perhaps they go in a different direction. But I'm not sold on that, man. Are you? Would you considering James Daniels and Mason Cole? Would you punt on a Zion Johnson or Kenyon Green at this juncture?
Nah, no,
no,
absolutely not. No.
Yeah. I actually think the Steelers have done a good job in free agency.
I do. I'm looking at it right here. They really did.
Yeah.
They knew what they wanted. They went out and they got it. They didn't break the bank to do it. Not that they ever really do. And I think they understand that, when you go out and you get you a Mitchell Trubisky, he wasn't the sexiest. People were kind of killing him for it. And the thing is like, it can't get no worse than last year. And you made the damn playoffs. Thank you, Carson Wentz. but you made the, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
It can't get no worse than that. You know what I mean? So Mitchell Trubisky, I mean, he's going to play on a team that they're probably going to, as long as you can, well, you know what? We actually don't know how good Mitchell Trubisky is because what he was playing under with his former team, and who was that? Matt Nagy?
Yeah.
Who was it?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Nah, B. Nah. They might have got something here, bro.
You think so? You think so? Lightning in a bottle? Maybe. I'm not betting on it. But I am of the mindset that I'm comfortable. It has nothing to do with Mr. Trubisky, man. It has everything to do with that offensive line, man. It has everything to do with the supporting cast,
Right.
And at this juncture, I'm assuming Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis are off the board. In this mock draft, Matt Corral was off the board. I'm not really interested in any other quarterbacks in the first round, to be perfectly honest with you. So don't force the issue. Let's continue to round out this roster. Now, we alluded to some of those other free agent pickups, shrewd pickups, cost-effective pickups, i.e. Miles Jack, Levi Wallace, and Ahkello Witherspoon. I really like the pickup of Wallace and Jack. I think those round out your defense, and defensively they weren't very good either. Their run fits were terrible at times. T.J. Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick were kind of your lone bright spots for most of the season. So they've done some work on that side of the ball. Pittsburgh could very well. It's not typically in their DNA, but I think receiver is something to consider here as well. You don't anticipate Juju Smith-Schuster being back, right? James Washington hasn't necessarily been that guy. I don't think he'll be back. You got Chase Claypool, who has some maturity concerns, and Deontay Johnson, who has some drops. So I think, and this
concerns
is
all over the place.
This isn't something that I had considered, but considering what they have done in agency at this point, it puts them in a position where you got the likes of Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, George Pickens, Jahan Dotson. You got a number of guys. Again, it's not typical of the Steelers to go receiver in the first round, but if you want to help out Trubisky, that might be the direction you go. I certainly wouldn't bat an eyelash if they double down along the offensive line, though, because it was that bad. So with the New England Patriots, Drew, with the 21st overall pick, for me at the time, a couple weeks ago, it was really straightforward for me. It was really straightforward for me. I thought there was a chance that they would be in the J.C. Jackson conversation. I thought I was misinformed. I certainly wasn't informed. The trade of Shaq Mason, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one. Just a salary dump. So there's an additional issue there. They've lost some other veterans on the defensive side of the ball. That hole in terms of a legitimate receiver one is still there. What at this juncture, you could go any number of different directions. I thought, like I said, I thought it was a foregone conclusion that they'd be addressing the receiver position here, and they would get a good one. But they have a lot of holes, man. I'm not sure about this one anymore. A guy that I think has gotten kind of forgotten in the mix among the corners, Cair Elam, is a guy that I think would fit well here in terms of what Belichick likes to do. He wants to be able to be aggressive in terms of his man coverage. Leave guys on the island. Press, be physical. He has the traits. He has the film that supports that. Of course, he kind of got depressed in terms of his value, but I think his arrow is pointing back up after a strong showing at the combine. So, yeah, I'm not sure where I come out on this one. I guess I have to think about where the depth lies. Of course, Zion Johnson came off the board with the previous pick, but he might be in play here. You understand what I'm saying? A local guy, having played his college ball at Boston College. You know what I'm saying? The interior of that offensive line means a lot for a quarterback like Mac Jones. You know what I'm saying? A guy who isn't necessarily going to extend plays. So, yeah, man, this is the Patriots. We talk about teams having some work to do. The Patriots have work to do, man. They seem to be going in the wrong direction from a personnel standpoint.
Every year they do this where they let a guy or two go or three go that you're like, why would you let that guy go? Or why would you trade that guy away? It doesn't make sense, right? This is one of those situations where, when you get paid, bro, you're young and you're stupid, bro. You're young, you're stupid, you get paid, bro. You go out there, you spend damn near all your money, and then you got to wait 2 weeks because you get paid in 2 weeks. Maybe you got a job, you get paid every week. But most cases, you get paid every 2 weeks. So that next check you get, you holding on to that boy real tight. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like last year they went out there and they blew their wide, and they had to wait there 2 weeks. And come this year, we got to keep things tight. You know what I'm saying? Close to the vest. You know, we gotta be out here pinching pennies. And like you said, I think maybe the spending of last year made them a little apprehensive this year. Hey man, matter of fact, we need to trade away guys that, I mean, talking about superstars. No, I'm not calling him a superstar. I'm gonna call him a superstar. And the tackle, man, like, excuse me, in the guard,
Shaq Mason.
Shaq Mason. Yeah, it's just I don't know. I don't understand. And I know he's one of those guys where, hey, we're gonna get rid of a guy maybe a year too early. But like when you do that, you don't like. Where's the replacement?
Hey, when they were doing that, they had Brady. B. You understand what I'm saying? You get the point that I'm making, right? You get the point that I'm making. When they were allowing the Richard Seymours to go and Chandler Jones and Jamie Collins at the height of his powers, and when they allowed that to happen, when they did those things, Lawyer Malloy's. I mean, we can go way back. They had Tom Brady, man. That was the difference. That was part of the difference. Now, of course, we you have to give Belichick a lot of credit in terms of what he does defensively. Of course, we just talked about J.C. Jackson. He's undrafted. He's an upper echelon corner. You know what I'm saying? So he's proven to be able to work things out. But throughout all of that, man, you always had that constant under center. You always had that constant, and you don't. And that isn't an indictment of Mac Jones, but I mean, we cannot compare Mac Jones to what Tom Brady has done over 2 decades. You understand what I'm saying? So here's another thing that you have to consider. You know, Dante Hightower, unrestricted free agent. Kyle Van Noy, unrestricted free agent. Jamie Collins, unrestricted free agent. Jawan Bentley, unrestricted free agent. I believe they made a trade, if I'm not mistaken, to acquire Mac Wilson, if I'm not mistaken. So you tried to help kind of mitigate that, but who did you trade to get him? Wasn't it another linebacker? You know what I'm saying? Like
I don't.
You got holes all over, or was it an edge rusher? Whatever the case may be, you got holes all over this roster, man. You're not. There's too much subtraction here, man. Unless you think you overachieved the season ago and you were kind of doing somewhat of a reset. I just find that hard to believe. I find it hard to believe. All right, so with the Raiders, as you can see, I made the selection of Devin Lloyd. They haven't done a whole lot to address their linebacking position, the off the ball, the inside linebacker position. I'm not terribly concerned with what wasn't the most impressive of combines. You know, what I see on tape, he's a first round pick for me, and I think he actually can be had at a discount because of the combine performance, right? But he's a difference maker, and I think that's what they're missing in the middle of their defense. But this team has done a really good job this offseason. You know, we just got word of the Devontae Adams trade, acquiring him. So they won't have this pick. The Green Bay Packers will have this selection at 22. Drew, is it a foregone conclusion that they draft whoever the top receiver on their board is here, or do they go in a different direction?
No, receiver. So I even don't play with it.
Don't play with it.
Just do the right thing.
Just do the right thing. Yeah.
Maybe they can scoop OBJ up in free agency. It was the Packers and it was the Rams.
That'd be a good place to start. I mean, obviously he's coming off yet another injury, but after the trade of Devontae Adams, who is, you know, a filthy rich, highest paid receiver ever, rejoining his old college teammate Derek Carr. He's from that part of the country, so. You know, I guess he didn't take kindly to the franchise tag. Apparently, Green Bay had matched the offer, but he had already made his decision. So they move him. They do get the capital, but they are without. They are ultimately without. We've been talking about them bolstering their receiving threats for years now. Now that the cupboard is pretty bare. As much as people may like on Amari Rodgers or what have you, let's just call it what it is. The cupboard is bare here. So the thought process is obviously receiver. We're talking at this juncture, Chris Olave, Jahan Dotson, based on what's on our board here. George Pickens has gotten some consideration in the first round as well. I think the guy that you got to go here, 22nd overall, considering what the board looks like, is probably Chris Olave. I think that's probably the guy that I would opt for at this juncture. You didn't waste any time with Kenyon Green. I would agree with you. This is paramount in terms of solidifying the interior of the offensive line, particularly with Kyler Murray as your quarterback. The Arizona Cardinals have added a long snapper and a punter. Don't get me wrong. Third phase of the game is very important. right? But that's all they've done to this point. They've lost Chase Edmonds. Of course, they re-signed James Conner. Christian Kirk got a ridiculous sum of money from the Jacksonville Jaguars, but good for him. I'm not begrudging him at all. Jordan Hicks moves on to Minnesota, so we're anticipating an increase in Zaven Collins, last year's first-round pick, and of course Isaiah Simmons is a mainstay now. And then of course Jordan Phillips returned to Buffalo, so no Chandler Jones. Hassan Reddick left a year ago. You got Ajabo here. You got Carl Loftus here. You got Boye Mafe. You got a lot of edge rushers. Are you still prioritizing the interior offensive lineman here, considering all those losses? Make you think about it, huh? Or you still gonna do it?
Nah, I'm gonna still do it.
Gonna stick to it.
I still want to protect my quarterback.
Okay, fair enough.
Because he was a fish out of water in that playoff game. Terrible. Yeah. And listen, if this guy's on the board, like you run over to the commissioner, you knock him over, you call the pick out immediately. There's no reason to do anything else, because if you draft this guy, Michael Parsons now becomes a guy that he becomes the true moving piece on that defense, which is what he should have been in the first place. And you're going to draft Nakobe Dean, linebacker out of Georgia.
Okay. We're getting weird out here, man. I mean, the pick itself isn't weird at all, but just staring Ajabo and Karlaftis in the face here, we're at the 25th pick overall, and those guys are still on the board, and they may remain on the board the way this thing is working out, man. So, Drew, as you said in our mock draft, run up to the podium, hand in the ticket, select Nakobe Dean, free up Micah Parsons for the Dallas Cowboys. But wait a minute. This offseason, it's been a tumultuous one for the Dallas Cowboys. Of course, they did a really good job bringing back Michael Gallup on a very cost-effective, team-friendly deal with him coming off the injury, but they lose Randy Gregory due to some offset language. Apparently, Jerry Jones was not pleased with respect to that. Cedric Wilson is now in Miami along with Connor Williams. Of course, that creates another hole on an offensive line that has deteriorated over the last couple of seasons. Reports is that La'el Collins will be on the move. I do not understand, and we mentioned it already in terms of the Amari Cooper trade. They didn't really get much back, in terms of compensation for that trade. So I don't understand what's going on here, man. All things considered, you still going to Nakobe Dean at this juncture?
Yeah. Dallas is how you go from, Dallas is one of those teams you look at and you're like, all right, man, there's a couple things you need to just get that right there, get that right there.
Little tweaks, right? Little tweaks.
Yeah, there's no.
Yeah.
Bro, I need you to go in there, bro. Just we're gonna make some oatmeal, man. Throw some water in there. You know what I'm saying? Water's in the fridge or the milk, whatever you prefer. You know what I'm saying? Throw a little sugar, a little cinnamon there, and you good, man. They went in there, they was throwing salt, cornstarch. Like, what are we doing? Like, what is happening? Like, it don't get no simpler than that. So I almost feel like you can't trust the people in charge, because if y'all couldn't even do the tweaks,
come on.
Come on, bro.
Come on.
How do you mess?
It's almost been 30 years, man. It's always been 30 years that you cannot trust the people in charge. Come on, let's be real. Since Jimmy Johnson's been gone, it's almost been 30 years. Now the saving grace has been Will McClay, and that's what they're going to be looking for. Save us, Will. Come draft night, save us from ourselves.
You had a shot at Chandler Jones, Von Miller. Like, even after you screwed up, we gave you another bowl and some more oatmeal to try this again multiple times, and you still fumbled it. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, man.
I think your point in terms of sticking with Nakobe Dean, as I think about it, it makes sense because, again, the whole point was to free up Micah Parsons. Now that you don't retain Randy Gregory, Dean addresses your second level. But then, of course, you lose Micah Parsons a little bit more in terms of what he does there. But, of course, you were trying to unleash him anyway, right? So yes, it would have been ideal to have a Randy Gregory or perhaps a second-round talent at the edge, which they potentially could still do, and then Nakobe Dean with Parsons moonlighting, right? So I don't think it takes him completely out of that realm. But what I do think in terms of what has transpired throughout the free agency, the new league year thus far, is that the offensive line continues to take hits, man. It continues to take hits, man. And I kind of feel like if a guy like Tyler Linderbaum is available at this juncture,
Sure.
Assuming Zion Johnson, King, and Green aren't there, I might go in that particular direction because there's going to be more pressure on your big money quarterback and running back than ever, considering what has happened during this offseason. You are getting rid of you're letting Lyle Collins walk. I don't really understand what happened there. There just may have been a falling out of some sort there. I've always thought that if you moved him into left guard, you mitigate that and kick Steele to right tackle, considering how he performed a season ago there. I think that may have made Tyler Biadasz better at center. Maybe, and then of course here now, Nakobe Dean is perfect. But
Right.
considering all again, this is another team that seems to be subtracting when they're right there on the cusp, right? You're going in the wrong direction from a personnel standpoint. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I'm not surprised considering the brain trust there in Dallas, to be honest with you. So let's talk about these Buffalo Bills, man. Of course, here in the mock draft, I had them selecting Roger McCreary to replace Levi Wallace, play him opposite Tre'Davious White. You got Teron Johnson in the corner. I love Roger McCreary. I know people are going to make fuss about the arm length, but the tape suggests, in my opinion, he's the best press corner in this particular class. I don't really think the scheme matters. I think he's that polished. You know what I'm saying? He can do it all. Um, but the Bills have been very busy here, man. They break the
Mhm.
bank for Von Miller. I'd really be interested to see how that breaks out. But 6 years, $120 million. He's the first defensive player ever to receive $200 million contracts in his career. They bring in Daquan Jones, Tim Settle to beef up the interior of their defensive line. John Feliciano heads exit stage left. They brought in three defensive tackles. They bring in
Mhm.
Jordan Phillips, Tim Settle, and Daquan Jones. So they don't need to address that position. Bring in OJ Howard. What do you think about the OJ Howard signing?
I think any team that was going to pick him up, I would like it. I mean, he doesn't have to go out there and be the guy. I mean,
Sure.
it's a 1 year deal, 3.5 mil. We know Knox is going to be the guy. Again for him, just need a fresh start somewhere else. A guy who's just he's got to he's got to be he's everything has to be positive for him to stay positive, man. Like he needs to have one good year and maybe he kind of takes off from there, man. But any turbulence,
Can't handle it.
that's
Yeah. Yeah, and then the guy, I mentioned Feliciano heading to New York, but they think they get the upgrade there with Roger Saffold. You understand what I'm saying?
right,
So
right,
Buffalo has been busy. They've been at it. Again, they haven't done anything at corner, so I stick with this pick. I stay with this. I mean,
right.
if you want to go in a different direction of Cair Elam, I certainly wouldn't bat an eyelash at that. But I really like Roger McCreary because of the versatility that he offers in terms of from a scheme perspective in particular. So with the Tennessee Titans here, as you can see on the board, I selected David Ajabo, assuming Harold Landry would hit free agency, but the Tennessee Titans did a great job of getting that long-term deal done. I think they had to get it done. I think they had to get it done because they have so many other pressing areas. Receiver is a huge eyesore. Of course, they released Julio Jones. So you literally have an injury-prone AJ Brown. That is your receiving core currently in Tennessee. That's not good. That's not good. I mentioned they lost Roger Saffold, but they were able to retain Ben Jones. So that gives them that puts them in a slightly more advantageous position than we had anticipated going into the new league year. Um, of course, I'm coming off the Ajabo pick here, and in all likelihood, I'm addressing the receiver position. If I don't like an offensive lineman here, I'm addressing receiver because, like I said, right now, as far as I'm concerned, you have an injury-prone AJ Brown and really nothing else.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree.
So with the 27th overall pick, Drew, you selected Tyler Linderbaum, and at the time, that would have been a dream scenario. Weren't anticipating Ryan Jensen. Certainly weren't anticipating Tom Brady being back, but he
Right.
is back, as is Ryan Jensen. So what do you do here now?
Yeah, man. Definitely not going Linderbaum here. With Marpet retiring, Bucks went out there and got Shaq Mason traded with the Patriots, ski mask and shades, routing the boys blind. Like you said, Jensen came on back.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
and they signed Aaron Stinney to a 1 year deal, and I think it's a prove it deal for him. I think the Bucks like what they have from the guard position, just the interior. They got a bunch of guys that I think they really do like. Stinney actually played very, very well when Marpet went out. I think it was not this past year, but the year before, and he would have played more, but he got hurt as well during that stint when the interior got hurt again. But so I think interior wise, I think they're fine. Went out there and brought back Chris Godwin, brought in Bashard Perriman. Maybe we go receiver here, or maybe it's corner. I think corner is probably the one where most people would think, hey, let's get another corner. You could never have too many, but word on the street is the number one thing that they actually want is an edge guy who can work inside. So if a White, it's very possible, but they want a quicker guy.
Oh, they want the twitched up guy.
Yeah, they want a twitched up guy.
Okay.
Who that would be? I mean, Wyatt's probably not going to be there at this point, but maybe they trade up for him. They may be in their position to trade up.
So is it more of a 5 technique that they're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that would be a miscast for Devontae Wyatt, to be honest with you.
Think so?
I think your boy Perrion probably would fit the bill.
Fit a better bill, because he's
But is he two gapping though?
It's a good question. I don't know if I want that.
Yeah.
They need to go ahead and get Zadarius Smith and call it a day.
Right?
Then we can move over to corner.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's another area that needs to be addressed. All right, Drew. So for the purposes of this mock draft, juxtaposed to what has happened during free agency, Chris Olave is already off the board because the Packers have used the 22nd overall pick that was originally held by the Las Vegas Raiders on a receiver, having traded Devontae Adams to the Raiders. So with the 28th overall pick, what do you do if you're Green Bay? You bring in Chris. Do you double down? Do you go receiver again?
Yeah, I was looking at the roster. I was like, can I? I mean, they could go defensive line. They possibly could do that. Can never have too many of those. But I think, we lost Adams. We don't sign Aaron Rodgers back. He was pissed. Didn't really want to come back. We were able to convince him by throwing him some money in his face. And we're going to have to double down here. We screwed up 2 drafts ago by not drafting a receiver. We need to do the right thing here. We've lost arguably the best receiver in the league. We need to replace. We got to bring in weapons. And this is one of those situations where I bring him into the room and say, hey, man, listen, what you thinking? Not necessarily the draft room, but maybe a couple of days before and say, hey, these are our top guys. What do you like out of these guys? Because this is probably where they're probably going to be right down here when we go to pick. We want to scoop both of them with these picks. I'm probably going receiver. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it at all. It's an overcorrection because of your refusal to address this position the last several drafts. But you're committed to Rodgers. You're committed to Rodgers for the next 2 to 3 seasons. Big money, and his top target. You know what I'm saying? You remember they did that Instagram post, The Last Dance. They were right. We were expecting Rodgers. If anything were to happen, we were expecting Rodgers to call it quits, hang it up, and Adams move on. But with Rodgers coming back, I think we all anticipated that Adams would remain in Green Bay, and of course it didn't work out that way. So doubling down at receiver certainly makes sense to me. Distinct possibility. I think they have some expiring contracts on the defensive side of the ball that they may want to get out in front of and take advantage of some of this edge talent at the back end. But of course they re-up with Preston Smith. So let Zadarius walk. Rashawn Gary took a substantial step. He looked really good. This defense was very good. They bring back Devondre Campbell. I think what they've done defensively is quality, man. I think Green Bay is going to be able to compete solely because they're going to be able to get stops. But to your point, I think I just talked myself into it. Double down at receiver, man. Figure out the Jair Alexander extension and double down at receiver. So with the Miami Dolphins on the clock here, originally I had them selecting Jahan Dotson. There really wasn't a whole lot with Mike Gesicki in the wind. And very little after Jalen Waddle in terms of the passing game. I made it a point to help out Tua. But of course, Miami, they got the franchise tag. Gesicki's already signed it. They bring in Cedric Wilson from Dallas. They also acquired Trent Sherfield from San Francisco. He flashed during the preseason and at times throughout the regular season. I think that's still a position that they could end up addressing, but perhaps not in the first round. Perhaps day 2 is when they do that. They added Connor Williams. Of course, this offensive line was atrocious. People aren't necessarily, the Connor Williams has been disappointing to this point, but with that being said, comparatively speaking, he'd be an upgrade to this offensive line. They saw it that way, and perhaps the scheme, the scheme that ultimately that they're going to be running will help and kind of leverage some of his athleticism, get him out in space a bit. They added a pair of running backs in Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert. So full-blown committee, obviously, coming from that Shanahan tree with McDaniels being the head coach. They brought in a fullback, Alec Ingold. I love it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Let's get it. 21 personnel, and so where does that put us? Where does that put us? I think at this juncture, I'm looking at potential edge. I'm looking at off the ball linebacker. Quay Walker is the guy that seemingly is starting to creep up boards here. I think that's in play. What direction would you go in here?
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Is there a scenario where Traylon Burks just falls down to these guys right here, bro?
Bruh.
And now we got
You know what? Bruh, you know what? It is a distinct possibility because I saw some nonsense. Let me be real with you. I saw some nonsense on Twitter. We talked about it. Some analytical tools available to the masses, right? And there were some measurable comparisons that were being done, and Traylon Burks apparently compared, very closely to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, right?
Yeah.
Who's been an absolute disappointment in Philadelphia. And analytics is analytics, right? Right. The numbers suggest one thing. But now, of course, when you filter it based on athletes, Burks, compares very favorably to A.J. Brown. And I see A.J. Brown in his game. Whiteside and Burks are nothing alike outside of those measurements. When you turn on the film, they could not be more different.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So I am not one of those people. I like to use analytics as a tool. I do not swear by them. I prefer to place an emphasis on tape. You can call it old fashioned. You can call it short sighted, whatever the case may be. I do not discount analytics altogether in the measurables and the testing, but I place an emphasis on that more in certain positions. And receiver, what you want is you want to see polish. Now Burks isn't that guy, so you are anticipating those eye-popping athletic numbers. But again, the tape suggests he plays so much faster and is so much more explosive than he actually tested. You mentioned it. He had kind of a Dalvin Cook type of combine, man. Kind of, pro day situation. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it was. And of course, that didn't change my mind about how good Dalvin Cook was either. You know what I'm saying? He was able to be had at a discount.
Right.
Yeah. But that's an interesting point that you brought up. That's an interesting point. I think it's a distinct possibility. And if I'm McDaniels, I may be leaping at that.
Yeah.
That's gonna cause some real problems with Jalen Waddle and Traylon Burks. That's gonna cause some real problems with all that pre-snap motion and misdirection and smoke and mirrors. That's gonna create consternation on the defense, and those guys are special with the ball in their hands.
That's that Mike Shanahan of the Southeast, bro.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Black Shanahan.
Yo.
So in our mock draft, George Karlaftis slipped quite a bit, but I think this was an ideal landing spot. Beyond the 2022 season, the cupboard is pretty bare up front. Mm-hmm. Spags needs some horses. Lose Ward, the cornerback. Tyrann Mathieu is an unrestricted free agent. They did sign Justin Reed to somewhat offset that. So I don't think safety is a priority. You may have thought perhaps Jaquan Brisker or Daxton Hill at this juncture, but I don't think that's in the cards for them. But I certainly can imagine and would be perfectly comfortable with this team addressing the defensive line. I think there's some guys that are still on the board here. Boye Mafe, for example, Devontae Wyatt, Perrin Winfrey, guys that could be considerations for this particular selection. I think receiver. This is a departure from me of what I thought. I've always felt that with Andy Reid's offense, it focuses on the primary receiver, the receiver one, and the tight end, right? And then of course the backs in the receiving game. But with no Pringle, Demarcus Robinson really didn't take that step to that conference championship game. There may be some intrigue here. So if a guy slides a little bit. I don't think they're going to reach for a receiver, but if a guy slides a little bit, one of these guys that we think is a first-round talent at the receiver position, I think they could potentially go there. But I'd be very, very comfortable and actually ecstatic about being able to get Karlaftis 30th overall.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Part of me feels like Mafe may cut in front of him some way, shape, or form because he performed well at his program.
Oh yeah,
he jumped off
Mafe's a problem. I think Mafe does end up in the first round. I really do. Yeah. The edge rushers are gonna fly off the board, B. They're gonna fly off the board.
When that run starts, there's gonna be two different runs. You just better get in when getting's good.
Yeah.
That first tier and that second tier.
Cincinnati Bengals are on the clock here, 31st overall, and in our 2-round mock draft from several weeks ago, I had them selecting Cair Elam. Of course, they've re-signed Eli Apple. It's just a 1-year, $4 million deal, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they could certainly still go the cornerback route. But of course, they made it a point in free agency to bolster their offensive line by selecting Alex Kappa and Ted Karras. I think they understand. I think they understand that where they're drafting, unless they can finagle something, unless they're able to move up, they're probably not going to be able to get a guy aside from perhaps your guy from UCLA or Tyler Smith from Tulsa. If you're higher on those guys, that is really worth a first round selection. Now, again, I've said it before. If I'm going to reach at any position, it's typically going to be the offensive line. So if I got a round 2 grade on a guy, but I really like him, I really like him, I would take him here at the bottom of the first, get the 5th-year option to work with as well. That's certainly a possibility. But from your perspective, what direction would you go here, considering what the Cincinnati Bengals have done in free agency to date?
Probably would go corner. Yeah, I could go corner here. Whether it be Elam, McCreary, or Kyler Gordon from Washington still on the board. Mm-hmm. I think the other guys are probably gone at that point in the draft. I mean, I too like what Cincinnati has done in free agency. I think they understood. Okay, listen, we were a play too short from winning the Super Bowl, and we don't want to take a step back because this is a franchise that's known to not really spend money and kind of just sit back and kind of let things fall into their lap and or let things walk away. And I think they kind of see it like, okay, we're like a piece away, or we're 2 pieces away of kind of sealing this off and winning the Super Bowl, because that offense is incredible. And everybody and their mama know the problem is the offensive line, and they went out there and they took care of business. Hey man, y'all need to go ahead and stop playing and go out there and get La'el Collins. I don't know what he's looking for, but whatever the hell it is he wants. Let's shore the offensive lineup. Let's just knock that out. So when you go into the draft, that's not a thing you're worried about.
I'm with that. I'm with that because again, to your point, where they're selecting, they may not be able to acquire a guy that they can just plug and play. You know what I'm saying? It's certainly possible. It's not outside the realm of possibility, particularly at the guard position. But it looks like they've already tried to address the interior of their offensive line. So if you're trying to figure out what's going to go at tackle opposite Jonah Williams, it may be effectively a reach. So La'el Collins may be the panacea, and apparently he has been linked the most to the Cincinnati Bengals. And again, we talked about it before. I don't know what Dallas is thinking, man. So rounding out the first round, the Lions making their second first-round pick, the 32nd overall pick they got in the trade for Matthew Stafford. You have them selecting Kyler Gordon. I could see a scenario where they certainly go Kyler Gordon here, Quay Walker. I think this team just needs to add more talent on the defensive side of the ball. I think that needs to be the focus. If there's an offensive player that is particularly high on your board, you can go and grab him. The offensive line is pretty much set. I like what they've started to really put together at their skill position as well. Quarterback is not out of the question. Quarterback's not out of the question, particularly if you want to, be able to play with a 5th-year option. You could probably grab a guy here at the bottom, but I would just tool up this defense. Bring in young, talented guys that can come in and make an immediate impact. And Kyler Gordon, the Quay Walkers of the world have the ability to do so.
I can't disagree, man. This team that needs talent, just continue to load it up. I like Kyler Gordon. And initially in some drafts, he was going really, really high in front of some guys. So I think people kind of cooled off and tempered off on that. But it's a team that needs talent. Just continue to add, man. Let's go, man.
All right, so we're now into round 2, and we're going to approach this just a little bit differently. I'm actually going to have Drew evaluate my selections. I will evaluate his. We're just going to do a quick yay or nay, and then why, whether or not it's because of what has transpired in free agency, or whether or not we would just gone in a different direction in the draft. So Drew, get us kicked off. I selected George Pickens with the 33rd overall pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I certainly wasn't anticipating the Christian Kirk deal.
Yeah, that's kind of like a blindside, man. So I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say yay because I really, really, really like the talent of George Pickens, and I think he actually might be a steal at that point. As a guy who was injured, and you just don't know what you're just not sure what you're gonna get. If you're gonna get the guy that I know he is, let's go. Just keep adding talent and weapons for Trevor Lawrence to get the ball to.
All right. So 34th overall pick with Christian Watson going to Detroit. Now, of course, they brought in DJ Chark on a 1-year, $10 million prove-it deal, but I don't know that I would necessarily go in a different direction here,
Right.
considering all things considered. It's just a 1-year deal. We're not sure exactly how that'll ultimately play out, but Christian Watson was really impressive in Mobile. I think there's a certain high for him in the bottom of the first round. I'm not sure
Right.
that that'll actually end up happening, but certainly I think he solidified himself as a relatively early day 2 pick. So I'm not coming off that either, even with the DJ Chark signing. With the 35th overall pick, I selected Daxton Hill, safety to the Jets. Drew, what do you think about that one?
They brought in two safeties, Joyner and Jordan Whitehead. So with this pick, I probably don't go here.
Okay.
It's kind of redundant, if you will. It's kind of a Jordan Whitehead pretty much kind of erases that pick. But I would go with just Jahan Dotson, receiver, possibly there for the Jets, or maybe even a David Bell, possibly.
All right, next up you have the New York Giants selecting Tariq Woolen, and I don't know ultimately what's going to play out with James Bradbury. Assuming all the corners have already came off the board, like as reflected in our mock draft, I don't think I'd be against this pick. I think from a traits perspective, he's new to the position, former receiver, but I think because of those traits and systemically, there's a lot of zone being played here, so that's one thing. There's some technique concerns, but I think the upside is tantalizing, and you do need to address the position. I could potentially go in a different direction as well here. I may consider actually going off the ball linebacker. I like Chad Muma quite a bit. You got the Christian Harrises of the world to consider. I could go back to the offensive line and address the offensive guard position. They didn't bring in Feliciano, but I don't know that solves all of your concerns along the offensive line. Even having addressed the tackle position earlier in this draft, there's some guards that I like day 2 quite a bit. A number of guys that played at the Senior Bowl that could be had at this juncture as well. I wouldn't rule out Woolen, but I may not necessarily go in that particular direction here. And then of course I make the next selection here with Devontae Wyatt. We're thinking that he's already gone at this juncture.
Yeah.
But of course you've talked about Wyatt to the Texans quite a bit, considering that they're going to get an additional first round pick once they move Deshaun Watson. What would you do here, assuming Wyatt's off the board? Winfrey, easy.
Yeah,
easy. If you haven't already addressed the 3 technique, Winfrey's your guy. And then I came back with Darian Kendrick, and that was before he was stuck. He had molasses in his shoes or something, because Kendrick really hurt himself, bro. Really hurt himself. I think he was a day 2 pick. I think he was in the conversation for round 2, round 3, and now who knows? Who knows when the madness might actually stop? You came back with Sean Ryan to the Chicago Bears, and I like it. I'd be perfectly comfortable sticking with this pick or addressing the receiver position. There's a lot of good receivers, a lot of good pass catchers still available. You mentioned David Bell. Jahan Dotson, in all likelihood, would probably be off the board by this juncture. You got Khalil Shakir, a number of different guys, a number of different weapons that would be part of the conversation at this juncture. But if you want to address that offensive line group, I certainly am okay with that. So previously, I selected Boye Mafe here. With the 40th overall pick, you took an edge at 41 here with Cameron Thomas. That makes perfect sense to me. Assuming you got Cameron Thomas at 40, I would come back. I would consider Chad Muma. You know what I'm saying, to pair him up with Jordan Brooks, considering that Bobby Wagner's no longer in town. We can go to the offensive side of the ball. We could double down. Travis Jones. We could do a number of different things. This is a team going through a rebuild. This is certainly a team going through a rebuild. So nothing is out of the question. Assuming I have my quarterback already in tow, nothing is out of the question here. Moving on to your selection for the Washington Commanders in the second round, which was David Bell. Definitely the receiver. Wouldn't come off this if he's the guy, assuming all the other guys are off the board, including Pickens, Watson, Dotson, so on and so forth. Yeah, perhaps the Sky Moore here with him climbing boards. He could be part of the conversation, but I'm very comfortable with the position that you're selecting there. And of course, you mentioned Perion Winfrey a number of times. The Falcons need pieces. I selected Marvin Leal, 44th overall to the Browns. I think they have some work to do along the defensive line. What do you think at this juncture?
I'm good with the pick. He gives you versatility up front, play inside, outside, perform on the inside with his ability, his quickness. I don't think he's at the level of a Winfrey or a Wyatt, but he has nice hands. Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, and I follow that up with Daniel Falele in Baltimore. Now, of course, Morgan Moses is there, but Morgan Moses isn't going to be there forever. Do you like the idea of Falele coming in, getting the opportunity to kind of serve as your swing tackle, especially considering that Ronnie Stanley has been injured, or would you go in a different direction here for Baltimore?
Probably go in a different direction just because I know they need a little bit more. They're gonna need some edge help or a guy inside. I don't know. There's a lot of buzz and push up, and when guys pro days come out and all that, he's a little light, man. Nick Bonito, edge player from Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I think he actually might be a surprise to come off. Arnold Ebb, and kill me down in the comment section because I can't say his last name. Penn State, we saw him at the Senior Bowl. Long and strong, and you saw that consistently there. Those are two guys I would look at as edge players for Baltimore.
You followed that up with the Minnesota Vikings and another Senior Bowl standout in Jalen Petrie. Thought he was excellent as a safety. He looked very, very comfortable in press coverage during his one-on-ones. Looks like a guy who can cover the slot. I wouldn't make any changes here. You get a guy who can be your traditional safety and then also serve as your nickel. You put him next to Harrison Smith. You become his understudy. You got something special on your hands right there. Sam Howell. The Colts didn't have a first-round pick because of the Carson Wentz debacle.
Sure.
We've talked about potentially Baker Mayfield being the starting quarterback in Indianapolis. If for some reason that doesn't necessarily play out, if a guy like Sam Howell is available, what do you think about it? Would you stick with that particular selection here, or would you go in a different direction?
No, I'm good with it.
All right. And then, of course, Jordan Davis in our mock draft was still available. Got him to plug up the Chargers. But again, I've already mentioned that the Chargers have really addressed the interior of the defensive line, trying to solidify that run defense already. At this point, considering what they've done at this juncture, I said in the first round, they could pretty much take best player available. They could literally do whatever they want. Do you still feel that same way here in the second round?
Yeah, I think at this point they would take best player available probably, and to me it might actually be one of the safeties might still be there. Brisker might still be there. You know how I feel about Derwin James, guy that big, that fast moving. At some point he's going to get injured again, and you're going to need a guy that's going to come in and take his spot. And I think he'd be a good add to do that.
I think that's a really great pick because considering what you're going to be facing, the likes of Denver and certainly Kansas City, and of course the Raiders, they're getting tooled up as well. You're probably going to see some dime and nickel. So a third safety, perhaps playing at the second level, makes a lot of sense in terms of being able to match up against some of these more athletic tight ends. You understand what I'm saying? So I actually like that. Another name that I would consider there is Trey McBride. I would consider Trey McBride if you really want to bolster and give your offense some more teeth.
That.
You know what I'm saying? That. So the Chargers managed to put themselves in a really great position based on what they've done thus far in free agency and via trade. Speaking of Brisker, you have him landing in New Orleans with the 49th overall pick. And, prior to free agency, it certainly made sense with Marcus Williams hitting free agency and a host of other veterans in that secondary no longer there. But they did bring in Marcus May to kind of mitigate that loss. So we might be looking for my Teron Armstead replacement if I don't already have him in-house. I think I may be trying to improve that offensive line. Quarterback is certainly a question mark as well. Desmond Ridder could be in play at this juncture, assuming he's available. So a couple of different areas, but I may turn my attention to the offensive side of the ball, considering the fact that they are at Marcus May. Now, if they do go Brisker here, I don't think that necessarily hurts them because they are losing multiple secondary members. So we're at the 50 spot, and we have the Miami Dolphins on the board, and I had them selecting Bernhard Raimann. Good? Yes? No? What would you do here?
Yeah, bro. What? Yeah. What?
Silly question. Yeah. Even with the Connor Williams signing, they got a lot of work to do. They got a lot of work to do. Absolutely.
We'll figure it out.
Yep. A guy that may end up going ahead of him is Tyler Smith, and you actually took him with the very next pick to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm thinking you plug him in at guard, and you run with it. Was that the thought process at the time?
Yep.
Sir,
don't come out there tackle. Don't do it.
I have no issue with that as they look to replace Brandon Brooks. Next up, I had the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Desmond Ridder. Mitchell Trubisky, I don't know. I'm not counting on him being the long-term answer. I might try my hand at Desmond Ridder at this juncture. Personally, that's what I did. So what about you?
We're gonna go receiver. You talked about it earlier in terms of this team, just the losing Juju Bean and
James Washington as well.
James Washington, and then just the Claypool, like you said, where's his head at?
Yeah.
And Brick Hands. I like Deontay Johnson.
Deontay's always open, man. He's always open.
You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to catch the football. You got to focus, man. And that's right. So I'm probably going receiver here. We got to get some guys that are reliable. If you're gonna have Trubisky and you want to see what he got, you got to have guys that are reliable, be where they're supposed to be, and catch the football.
So I followed that up with the selection of Travis Jones, 53rd overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. But of course, they acquired Devontae Adams. So this pick is owned by the Green Bay Packers. What are you doing here in the second round?
Green Bay? We'll stay right there.
You gonna stick with Jones? You gonna stick with Jones?
Yeah.
Yeah. I might go Muma.
You might go Muma?
I might go Muma. Oren Burks is gone. You re-signed Devondre Campbell. I might just put Muma next to him, man. Just call it a day.
I ain't mad at it.
Call it a day. I select Chad Muma to help mitigate all the losses at the second level in the winning. What do you think about that particular pick?
I mean, I'm good with it, keeping it there. He would I think he'd be outstanding in that defense for the Patriots.
All right. And then you followed that pick up, 55th overall, the Arizona Cardinals with John Mechie. So Christian Kirk exits stage left. We're anticipating AJ Green back. You need somebody other than Rondell Moore to put in that receiver room with DeAndre Hopkins, who's coming off the injury, and you have a nice polished player here in John Mechie. I might look for a guy with a little bit more upside, to be perfectly honest with you. The Sky Moores of the world may come into play here, but I actually do anticipate Mechie coming off the board round 3 for me. With the Dallas Cowboys franchise tagging Dalton Schultz, I'm not sure they'll go the Trey McBride route, but you certainly can't rule it out. If that is the case, under different circumstances, I would be fine with it, even with Schultz under the franchise tag. I'd be perfectly fine with McBride being kind of your long-term answer there. But so many detractions with respect to the offensive line. I got to do something about it, man. I got to do something about it. I have to stop the bleeding. You understand what I'm saying? And there's a question mark at center. There's a question mark at guard in particular. You might be creating an issue at tackle, although I expect Tyron Smith and Terrence Steele to be your starting offensive tackles. So let's go the guard route here. Let's go get me a Jamari Salyer, perhaps. A Darian Kennard if he's available. Those are the types of guys that I'm kind of looking at this juncture for the Cowboys in round 2. Following that Cowboys selection, I picked Quay Walker, again, a guy who is flying up draft boards. He may not get out of the first round. He lands in Buffalo. You know why I went linebacker? Because I don't like the Tremaine Edmonds situation. And, of course, beyond the 2022 season, I believe Matt Milano is the only linebacker under contract. So where do you come out here with the 57th overall pick for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, we're going to stay right there.
All right, easy enough. Yeah. As we're getting to the end of our inception to our 2-round mock draft, juxtapose 2022 NFL free agency, you selected Jamari Salyer to the Green Bay Packers with the 59th overall pick. I like it. We paid Aaron Rodgers the big money. I don't know if anybody's going to actually get open, so you better protect them. And then with the 60th overall pick, you have Kenneth Walker landing in Tampa Bay. I'm not going to argue it. I think there may be some players that the Bucs front office may actually prefer, considering the areas
on the street.
Yeah, Isaiah Spiller, considering the areas where Walker needs to improve. I think in terms of carrying the ball, he's as talented as anybody else. But pass pro, there's a concern there, and he doesn't excel in the passing game. I think he's capable, but he doesn't excel there. So I could see an Isaiah Spiller in this particular spot. Although I am a fan of Kenneth Walker. You know what I'm saying? If Spiller is already off the board, then I wouldn't bat an eyelash here. All right. And then, of course, Logan Hall was your next selection with the San Francisco 49ers. Would I go Logan Hall here? I think there's some other players that I like more than Logan Hall, man. Logan Hall's good, but I think there's some guys that I like along the defensive line, along that front seven, that
Mm-hmm.
I may go in a different direction. Now, of course, they bring in Oren Burks. He just battled injury, man.
He's
I,
been
I
staying,
like
bro.
Burks. He was a former Senior Bowl standout from
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt, but you know what? Let's stick with Logan Hall. Let's not
Roll
overthink
with
it.
it.
Let's roll with it. Let's add him to the rotation. Lewis Sign was my selection with the 62nd overall pick to the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, I mentioned before they bring in Jordan Reed. Of course, this is all the emphasis is placed on Tyrann Mathieu hitting free agency, but I'm not exactly thrilled with what's going on with the rest of the secondary and the safeties. But you're on the clock here. You're making the selection here. All things considered, free agency the way it's playing out. What do you do here?
Yeah, I like Lewis Sign there. I also would like to see, and I know, like you had said earlier, Kansas City, in terms of their receiving core, it's the number one receiver, and then it's a tight end, and then running backs, right? But again, it's not a lack of trying because they've tried, just no one's kind of stuck there.
Right.
So they I think maybe go receiver here, maybe a David Bell still on the board for you there. Um, maybe maybe Mechie might still be there. So I know you spoke about him maybe going
Hmm.
top of the third somewhere. So maybe we go that route.
I made the pick of trying to obviously bolster that Cincinnati Bengals offensive line. I selected Darian Kennard, 63rd overall.
Yeah, we don't got to do any of that. They're squaring that off there. They figured that out. They just need to do one last thing: go out there and get La'el Collins. Call it a day.
Call it a day.
Call it a day. And here they could go. They could bolster up, add another pass rusher if they so choose. Whoever's left on the board, whether that be Majai Sanders or Ignabari. Kingsley Ignabari, Drake Jackson,
Hmm.
or if my man Logan Hall is still there, or maybe you know what, let's go for it. If he probably won't be there, I'm gonna throw his name in there. Is it a Trey McBride if he's there at
Okay.
that point?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Make it really, really awful on opposing
Yeah.
defenses. Yeah. And with the last pick in our 2-round mock draft, we have the Broncos back on the clock. First round went with Ahmad Gardner. Came back in the second round, got Boye Mafe. I'm thrilled with. I might be more excited about the Mafe pick
My
than
bad,
the
yeah.
Gardner pick. And here we are with Denver back on the clock, and there is we're addressing that defense. And there's things that we could potentially do on the offensive side of the ball, but I'm gonna go back to the well. I'm gonna go back to the well on defense here. And the guy that I'm looking at is Christian Harris.
Yeah, I
I,
was gonna
I
say,
think
bro.
I think I think we can stop his slide here because the thing that Denver is missing, I like Jewel, I like Johnson, but those guys are more two down in nature. Now they struggle, in terms of defending the pass. I think that's where Christian Harris tends to flourish. You understand what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? If I think he does a pretty good job green dogging as well, but he provides more athleticism at the second level of the defense. So in Denver, we've addressed every level of the defense, and we've got more athleticism, more explosiveness with each of those picks. All right, so that's going to do it for our first 2-round mock draft. All right, Drew. So to round out our 2-round mock draft, our inception, we've gone inside our own mock draft with everything, with all the moving parts, all the free acquisitions, all of the trades, all the blockbuster trades, man. It's been a wild offseason. I've never seen an offseason quite like this in the NFL. And we were forewarned. There are a lot of people plugged into the NFL that say, hey, this one's going to go be crazy. And I mean, I don't even think the biggest news has dropped yet, and I think that's associated with Deshaun Watson as of the time that we're recording this. But the last selection I made, the Broncos, they do maintain a second round selection, and I had them selecting Christian Harris, the linebacker out of Alabama. Are you good with it? Do you come off of it? What say you, Drew?
Well, based on what they've done in free agency, they brought back Josie Jewell, but he can't stay healthy. We're gonna ride with Christian Harris. We're gonna leave it there.
All right, man. All right, man. This was fun. This was very interesting. May have been a little bit challenging to keep up with, but certainly mock drafts at this juncture make very little sense until the dust clears. So we wanted to
Right.
kind of go back into one of our more robust mock drafts and kind of see how free agency has impacted it to date. Guys, let us know if this is something that you this guys, let us know if this is content that you actually enjoy, that you think is insightful. Let us know down in the comments. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. For Drew, this is Juice signing off.